Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Hashtag Study Sesh, brought to you by Boston Broadcast. My name is Sureshnie and today we're getting right into the heart of human resources. I'm joined by Stanley Awase, who of course heads up HR and development. How are you doing, Stanley?
I'm doing wonderful. It's great to be here and it's good to have a conversation with you.
I feel like this is the serious department. When you talk about HR and human resources, I'm like, are we in trouble? Is everything good? But human resources play such an important role when it comes to business, when it comes to life itself, when you go into to work. How is it for you? What do you think human resources means for you?
Human resource for me, it's that thing which helps the organization to function properly. It's true that most people attribute issues and problems with human resource most often than not. When you see a human resource practitioner, it sometimes means that there's trouble. But the reality is human resource is there to assist the worker to make things better. It's there to help enhance the skills of the worker and also to make sure that the organization complies with the rules and regulations that will help working in the best environment.
I love that. In my life as a kid, I always thought in my very own household that my dad was the head of human resources because I was always going to him to complain about my brothers and my sister, and my mom was the rule enforcer. So I was like, I need to speak to HR. So I thought that is kind of how it feels when you join a company. The human resource department gives you the framework or the boundaries in which for you to operate. But we know when we unpack HR, you can do important components like training, education, and development. So let's start first with unpacking training. If I think about training, I immediately think about skills enhancement because often when you go into work, the first thing you do when they try to onboard you is how to give you training or just skill set to understand what you will be experiencing or the programs you need to learn before you actually start work. Tell me about skill enhancement.
Remember that it's very important to be qualified in the work that you do. So skill enhancement is put in place just to ensure that the person who is doing the job is given the appropriate skills to be able to do the job the way it's supposed to be done. Some jobs require you to have training constantly because of the changing working environment. So when we talk about skills enhancement here, we talk about the specific skills that are required for the current job role and how the organization helps to get the worker to be prepared to some sort of work in accordance with the role that they have been employed to. So it helps you to be able to not only do your job the right way, but also gives you the required tools to be able to adjust and adapt when necessary.
And I think it's very important to adapt because in a normal working environment, the chances are programs change or there are new developments and enhancements, and you have to always keep on top of those changes. And I think those little skills certificate training courses are so helpful just to make sure you're always on par with where the company is going. Then what about adaptation to change? Not everybody loves change. When people see the opportunity of like, oh, not another program, I just got used to this. Why are we changing again? But people say adapt or die. It's really important to have that ability to be flexible to adapt to change. Am I right?
That's very correct. I mean, adaptation helps you stay updated and proficient in your role. It's very important to adapt because there are a lot of things that are changing. Remember, 10, 15 years ago, information and communication technology was not at the level at which it is today. And as we're moving forward, we are already talking of the fourth industrial revolution. In fact, so people have moved away from the fourth and they're talking about the fifth industrial revolution, referring to things like robotics and artificial intelligence. So it's important that the worker is kept abreast with what's happening in their industry and that they are able to work with the changes. If you don't do that, then it becomes practically impossible for you to perform your role. Remember that they are competing organizations, and we don't want to lose business because the people we are working for our organization are not prepared. So it's very, very necessary for you to have an open mind when it comes to change and be ready and willing to learn new things, so to speak.
Yeah. And you have to embrace innovation because innovation takes you forward. And just like you said, if you're competing or your competitors are already moving and using Chat GPT or they're moving towards AI, then it's actually a good thing to also get on par and see what it is like and then move your company forward. I think that's really important. My husband works in the mining industry, and one of the things I learned from him is safety. Like they do safety checks before they get into a mine. He's an engineer, so even as an engineer, he's got to make sure he's wearing the correct hard hats, he's got the correct jackets that are luminous so that he can be seen if he's on the mining site. And I know from what he tells me is that training in safety compliance is so rigorous and so important. How does safety compliance come into training?
Training ensures that the employees understand the protocol, the legal regulations. It also ensures that things like accidents and incidents are reduced. And of course, the legal liabilities can also be mitigated. So, in jobs such like the one which your husband is involved in, safety and compliance are very critical. It is important that employees are trained. It's very necessary that we ensure that all safety protocols are being followed. If they are not properly trained, then we are opening ourselves for accidents and incidents. And those are some of the things which the company wants to avoid. We know that when the employee feels safe, then the ability to work would be better, their productivity will be better, and as a result, profitability for a company would be optimized.
And speaking of employees performing better, I always think that when an employee receives the right amount of training, the upskilling, learning new programs, or the person is updated about innovations and new developments, that alone will help that employee perform better, which means there will be just improved performance overall. What are your thoughts on improved performance when it comes to training?
When someone is well trained, they tend to perform better. Obviously, being well trained also gives you some sort of confidence in the thing that you're doing. It leads to an increase in productivity. Obviously, it also leads to an improvement in the quality of the work that is being done. And at the end, especially if customers are involved, it will ensure that the customers are satisfied. So improved performance is very critical for the overall well-being of the organization, of the employee, and of course of the employer.
Yeah. And I think a happy work life, a happy environment can only boost people's performance because when you're feeling good, you know exactly what you're supposed to do. Your company has equipped you with all the correct skills. It can only make you do much better than the day before. I love that. So, Stanley, we're unpacking HR, especially when it comes to education, training, and development. When it comes to the module of education, how important is knowledge acquisition? How do we go about focusing on understanding the theory and the practical?
Education is very important. It is impossible for you to function without education. Knowledge acquisition is critical for every form of work. So, education programs focus on impacting theoretical knowledge and conceptual understanding, which are, of course, relevant to the employee's field of industry. So, if you want to be able to get a clear theoretical and conceptual understanding of your field of work and the environment in which you find yourself, then you can do that through education. That's why we say the more you know, the more you want to know.
Oh, I like that. The more you know, the more you want to know. And that brings me to the next step, because once you're starting learning more, your interest and your appetite grows. You get hungry for change. So let's say you're working in an accounting department and you started to learn a lot more about the accounting strategies. You studied accounting, but then you've realized, oh, I would like to see what my next step is, because growth in the industry for any individual is so important. Nobody wants to sit in the same position and get bored. People want to know, what could be my possible next step? How do I advance in my career? So let's say you're working in the accounting department, you learned everything that you think it was, and then you realize, hold on, I could expand a little bit more. Let's see if I can help out in the tax department, or let's see if I can help out with doing a little bit more in my field. And I think career advancement is a very attractive thing when anyone is employing, interviewing for a position. You want to know, like, is there opportunity for me to grow? And I think that's so exciting. So tell me about career advancement when it comes to education.
It is important for us to note here that advanced education is very necessary for those who want to upskill in their career path, those who want to grow. So things such as workshops, seminars, and other advanced certification programs are condensed programs which take the critical, very important things that are necessary in that specific field of work and then present it to the employee within a short period of time. It's different from when you are perhaps doing a course, which takes, say, 6 months plus to be able to finish. So these short programs are very important in helping upskill the employee and preparing them for the sort of work which is necessary if they would like to move forward.
I love that. The other thing I find extremely important is that at the end of the day, when we join an organization, we're part of a team, and everybody talks about how important every link, every player is. But if I don't know where the organization is heading, if I don't know what the goals are of the organization or what is expected of us, I might just go to work and do my own thing. I need to align so that I make sure that I am performing at an optimum, but also we all know what our roles are so that together we can help the organization achieve those goals. How important is strategic alignment when it comes to individual employees?
It actually ensures that employees understand the broader context of the work environment and how this contributes to the organizational goals. So it's very important for the employees to get this sort of education that will foster critical thinking and help them, broaden their knowledge with the organizational strategic objectives.
Earlier, when you and I were chatting, you brought up something that's very important. I thought we were actually just approaching the fourth industrial revolution. Turns out we're actually nearing the fifth industrial revolution. And some of the buzzwords for people in the industry are like, what about innovation? What about your growth? Where are you heading to? How does innovation and creativity come together and align so that we make up for this important sector in education?
Education helps to foster critical thinking. The more you think, the more you become innovative. It also helps with problem solving skills. And of course, like you were talking about, creativity. It enables the employee to generate innovative solutions. We live in a world where things are constantly changing. So you need to come up with solutions that are speaking to our current situations. I was chatting with an engineer a few days back, and he was saying he's looking at ways at which fuel can be mixed with other things to help, reduce the cost of having to fuel cars. And I
Yes.
told him we're moving towards artificial intelligence. So he should be thinking about how the car should be auto-driven.
I
And he
know.
just laughed about it. And but those are some of the things. So you have not only to be creative, but your creativity should speak to the current situation.
This is where we're going to close our chapter on education. And next, we're going into development. Stanley, career growth. Man,
Yes.
career growth is so important. Like I think we spoke about career advancement. What programs prepare employees for career growth?
Development programs that focus on preparing employees for the future roles within the organization. This may involve mentoring. In some companies, when you get employed, you get someone who stands as a mentor. He will be able to hold your hand and help you whenever it's necessary. In other organizations, those mentors are referred to as coaches, whichever word you would like to use. You get people that are there to guide you and coach you and give you the necessary skills that will prepare you for the future. That is, if you are looking into advancing yourself in terms of the career. This is also very important when you are in a company where there's a lot of job rotation and people have to move from one department to the other. It helps to prepare you and get you ready for whatever task that you are going to be looking ahead to.
Absolutely. I must tell you, when I joined, I wanted to get into strategy when it came to radio. And it was something brand new to me because as a radio presenter, I knew how a studio operated, I knew how to host a show. But to learn the skills of working behind and to work in like brand creative strategy, I had to learn many new things. And I did chat to my coach and I said, I would love to learn this. How do I get there? What skill sets or what programs do you think I should be learning? And that is the beauty of what a coach does. The coach tells you and gives you a heads up and said, okay, if you want to move into strategy, a good thing to learn is how to use Excel. It's how to become a much more proficient writer. Maybe perhaps read a lot more proposals. So those little nuggets of information is what helped me advance to the next spot. And I think that's so
Yes.
important when you are looking in a career, finding coaches, finding mentors, finding colleagues who can guide you correctly. How do I get from A to B? Let me know. And I think that's so vital. And then when you go from career growth, what's also important is succession planning because people are not going to remain in their jobs until they're 90 years old. People might have new opportunities or decide they want to leave the company, but there has to be a plan B. But you have to have a plan for somebody to step into your shoes and take over the role, which means we need to be preparing the next generation of people to take over. Tell me about succession
Yes.
planning.
It is very, very important. Like you said, the people who are there will definitely grow old. So there's definitely going to be a need to get more competent young talents to cover up. So developing the talents that you have, those that are young in the organization, getting them ready to fill those key positions is very, very important. This reduces the risk which is usually associated with vacancies and promotes continuity. The truth is that in organizations where succession planning is not properly done, they end up spending more. So it is more costly for the organization. And when you already have people that you have trained, it helps continuity. It also gives a sense of belonging to the young talents that are already in the organization. So it's very important for every organization if they would like to have a long-lasting impact to make sure that their succession planning is up to standard.
And the legacy continues because that's what you want. You want to take the one legacy to grow into the next generation and that
Yes.
there's no gap left behind. Stanley, as we unpack human resources, one of the very important subheads when it comes to development is employee engagement and retention. People often talk about a company's retention rate. When you are interviewing for a position, I think one of the things many people ask is, what is your employee retention rate like? Because people want to know that if they join this organization, it's not going to be like, hey, you work there for 6 months, suddenly they're getting rid of you and they're getting on to the next thing. So you want to know how well this company is doing, that people love it so much and actually want to stay there. Did I understand that correctly when it comes to employee retention?
That's very correct. I mean, employee retention is very critical. Like you said, most people would like to know how long those who have been employed have been in the organization and why. So, investing in employee development demonstrates a commitment to their growth and of course the advancement. And this helps them now to have trust in the company. It also increases job satisfaction. And of course, the very critical thing which we have been talking about is loyalty. So you cannot want to stay in a company where you don't see any benefits. That's why employee engagement and retention is critical.
And you also want to be in a happy work environment. You want to know that when you get to work every day, everything is working. Yes, there are little kinks in the system. Yes, there are little ups and downs here and there. But generally, when you chat to your colleagues and your co-workers, you can see they're loyal to the brand. I mean, I was with one particular brand for 24 years because I loved it so much. I loved how I was treated. I loved how I was growing. I loved how I was learning. And I didn't want to leave, to be honest. I was like, I'm happy here. It's made me happy. It's allowed me to grow as an individual, and it gave me great challenges. And that for me was loyalty. Like 24 years staying in a place, it wasn't like you were stagnant or you're stuck, but it's because I was so happy with all the things I was learning and growing in. I was like, this is going to be a fantastic place for me to stay. And there was opportunities for me to step up every step of the way. So that was also one of the things that I enjoyed. When I applied for work not so long ago, one of the traits that I wrote about myself, I said, I'm a curious and agile individual. And I thought that agility is extremely important because the world that I'm currently in, which is in media, is now moving towards digitization. It's very modern, it's very quick, things are changing very fast. I needed to be able to adapt. And I always think that being agile is very important. What does organizational agility mean?
It is very important to develop a versatile workforce which is capable to adapt to, like you mentioned, the new challenges that are taking on different roles, enhancing the organization's agility and resilience in the dynamic business world. So it's very important that workers are ready and willing to adapt to the changes. So organization agility is very critical. It helps organizations to be able to tackle the new changes that are happening. It gets them prepared, it gets the workers prepared, and helps the business to succeed.
I mean, if you think about how important it is to be flexible, when COVID happened,
Yes.
so many of us suddenly were like, how do we do our work and how do we continue doing what we do? And then it was programs like Zoom that came into play, programs like Teams that most of us had never worked on. And then there were programs like Telegram, or finding opportunities of we need to still work, we need to be able to have some kind of adaptation. So people started to go home, and then we learned about online schooling and we learned about how to connect with our colleagues. You all have to work during COVID, or you have to still keep your business running. And then we learned to adapt. And I think COVID was an opportunity for so many of us to upskill, so many of us to learn brand new ways. We could have all said, nope, I have no idea how to do this, and give up and then not know what to do. And then 2 years later, look how far we have come with those programs. We've actually changed so much of how we actually operate and how we can survive in incidents like that, because the organization was agile enough to say, okay, we have this huge problem on our hands. What can we do to keep running? And then people said, oh, we have a program called Zoom. And all we need to do is get everybody online, and then we learn to work like that together in teamwork. And I think that for me is one of the greatest examples of how we have successfully become agile as a race, even as a human race, because we've learned like COVID can't stop us. We've got to keep moving. And I think that's a good example. You agree?
I totally agree. In fact, one of the things that people need to remember is that being flexible is not just helping the organization, it actually helps you as the employee. Remember, COVID taught us a serious lesson. A lot of organizations closed because they couldn't, meet with the changes. So when you have employees that are dynamic, that are ready to change, that are willing to change, it helps to be able to stand storms like COVID. So it's a plus not just for the organization, even for the individual. We are moving away from staying in the office and working in the office to remote working and working from home. So many years to come, if you are not willing to work in those kind of circumstances, it will be difficult for you. So adapting, being willing to change, being agile are things that are very important to succeed in the working environment of today.
I love how you're wrapping up this entire session on human resources, Stanley. Stanley Enga Owase was, of course, our lecturer today in human resources. We learned about training, education, and development, and these are the vital components when it comes to human resources. Stanley, what are your last words and some advice for students?
Training is very critical if you would like to succeed. Look at it this way. When you want to do something, you want to be in the best possible position to do it. Training gives you the necessary tools to be prepared to do what you are doing. Education helps you to understand the thing that you are doing, and development helps you to improve on what it is that you are doing. So, as a student, we must look at training, education, and development as very critical tools that will help us become the best. It will help us to help the organization to succeed in the long run. So, let's invest in training, let's invest in our education, and let's be ready to develop.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Stanley, for being part of another Boston broadcast. That's, of course, is called Study Sesh. We can't wait to catch up with you again soon. Take care, and thank you so much for being part of this edition.